Yeah. See, oh, there it goes. Boom. We're recording. Look at that. Hey,
Hey, evening. Get some background so you don't have to see the spare bedroom of the Rinky household.
We're a little bit shy of people. Yeah. 2, 3. 3 board members, which certainly isn't a quorum. 15. Well, we gotta have at least 7. Back to them.
I don't even know what it is yet. Gotta go to MRI on 14th, the doctor on the 16th. It's right. Well, it's some type of torn tendon or ligament. Happened on Sunday. Yeah, probably. Well, like a week ago, Sunday. Happened a while ago. Yeah, out for the winter. What it's looking like. Sorry to hear that. Getting old.
No, it didn't happen there.
Yeah, I was just jogging lightly and I heard the pop and I thought somebody threw something at me and turned around and looked and nobody was there. So it's. We're right.
All right, well. Just to do it right, it's 5:30 official start time. I'm going to, I don't know why, but I'll call the roll. So I'm here. Kirsten Dixon is not here. Sue Christensen is not here. Nancy Hillstrand is not here. Curtis Jackson is excused. Stephen Payton. There's somebody at 398-4505.
Yes, Robert, this is Gary Fondry. I was just going to listen in.
Okay, hi, Gary. Glenn Stevens here. Stephen Payton. Not here. Meg Cicerella. She's got the flu. Eric Peterson's here. Kevin's here. Louis Capri is not here. Yellow Pennant will not be here. So. We've got 6 inches of snow. We probably can't get out of this driveway. That's only 4 of us, so we need 2 more per meeting. So at this point, we cannot conduct business. But we do have a visitor, Mr. Little. He was wanting to speak to us about Land and Water Conservation Fund and the Saddle Trail property and property at Mike's Bay. So
I'll chat a bit, I suppose.
Sure, the floor is yours, my friend.
And Hans, if you can see me, I'm Chris Little, the Conservation Fund, not the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a federal program that we should talk about later.
I'm gonna turn the lights up.
So I'm talking about 2 properties that we are in the process of donating to Kachemak Bay State Park, actually to DNR. And we continue to move forward with staff at DNR to complete those donations. The first is the Saddle Trail property, which is about 5 acres right at the start of the Saddle Trail. And the second is a 22-acre property in Mike's Bay, which is on Nuke Island. Pretty cool property. So we are on track to complete the donation, hopefully by the end of the calendar year. Been pushing DNR pretty hard to complete it by the end of the year, because there's some financial reasons for my leadership to do so. And that's what we committed to at the beginning of the project, to get it done by the end of this year. And we want to honor that commitment and those who stepped up for it. A little bit about the fund. We're a national organization. We've been working in Alaska since 1994, and we do land transactions. And we're, I would say, the best in the business in the nonprofit world. And we branched off of the Nature Conservancy in 1985 to really focus on those pieces: conservation transactions and fundraising, financing deals. And so we work at the request of our local partners to help them be more successful in their transactions and their conservation outcomes. In this case, the state park is a conservation partner. We also work with the federal government, the National Fish and Wildlife Service, and also National Park Service. And then we work with local land trusts and other entities who own and manage conservation lands. We do buy land and own them for certain periods of time. At the end of the day, we are not, we don't want to be the long-term owners. We're really not the appropriate party to do so. And so we pass it off to our partners, which is what we are doing now with the Saddle Trail in Mikes Bay. So we're called the Conservation Fund because we have about $150 million revolving fund that I, as a field staffer, can tap into to do projects. And it's frankly like we're taking out a loan from ourselves. And so for these properties, I have gotten board approval to use our money to purchase them, with the idea that we can fundraise and get grants and private funding to ultimately pay ourselves back. And then we move on to the next project that we can use those revolving funds on. So money comes in, money goes out. And it's a good business model that has done well for the Conservation Fund in Alaska since '94. We only have 3 of us in the state. We're kind of lean and mean. Brad Micklejohn opened our office in 1994. And now it's myself and John Ross who are taking on new projects across the state. Work statewide. I've been in Homer for about 2.5 years. I've been with the fund for about 10 years, moved here a couple of years ago. I'm really thrilled to be doing projects in my back door and across the state. These projects, we'll talk about the funding a little bit. So the Mikes Bay property is very much a habitat project from the Conservation Fund perspective. From our partners' perspective, there is an anadromous river right next to the property. We were able to secure funding through the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. They get funds from NOAA through the Alaska Sustainable Salmon Program. And we were able to get some funding for that project, and essentially it pays 74% of the cost, and we were able to cover the other costs with private funds. So that one is paid for, and we're moving that forward. The Saddle Trail property is a little bit of a different project. They're all different, and we fundraise differently for each. Saddle Trail is very much a recreation property, so a little bit different than what I'm used to fundraising for, which is mostly habitat conservation projects. But I understand how important this property is for the community and for the state park. And we've been chasing that project for 10 years. We purchased it, I'd say, a year and a half ago. And now we're making good progress to get it to the park. The fundraising has been much more challenging for the Saddle Trail property. Really, my intent going into it was to generate private funds and then use that to match a grant of some sort, be it a state or federal grant. Quickly learned that the state is unwilling to pay for projects like this, and the feds, it's very difficult to get federal money for state recreation projects. It's much easier to get it for habitat projects. And so we've fallen short a bit on the fundraising, but I'm committed to making it happen. I'm committed to those who stepped up for the project, and we're going to complete the donation this year. And and make it happen. So I'd like to first off thank all of you who have been involved with this project and stepped up and donated. It's a meaningful project for the community. Those should be, who have donated should be very proud. This is an exciting project, and it's something that will certainly benefit the community and the park going forward. We are still actively fundraising. It's a really exciting project to be a part of. So any amount helps now. We are dedicated to making this happen and completing the project and donation, and appreciate any help going forward, and we'll get it done. So that's kind of the status of where we are. There's, I guess, a couple important points. So the Mike Bay property will actually be added to the state park. It's running low.
Yeah, you keep going. I remember that's.
And so the Mike's Bay property will actually be added to the state park because the Mike's Bay or the Nuka Island Management Plan calls for private lands that are acquired to be automatically added to the park. This can be a little bit different for the Saddle Trail property that will be donated to DNR, and it is not going to be added directly to the park because you need to make a legislative boundary adjustment to add that property. So we will do our best to give it to the state in a way that ensures that it's managed consistent with the state park, to the same policies and management, and with the idea that it would be added in the future to the state park through some legislative action. It's kind of out of my hands at that point. I don't really do the legislative stuff, but it's hopefully those wheels will be in motion once we donate it to DNR. So that's where we are. I'm excited to kind of be nearing the end of these. It's the fundraising has been tough, but at the end of the day, this is an exciting project, and it's something I'm proud to be a part of, and I'm happy to talk about the property. It's an exciting place, and in the spring we do intend to have some type of event to recognize the donation of the Saddle Trail Lakes Bay property. So happy to answer any questions. And yep.
We only have one question on the line there.
Well, then you're
Yes, unmute it, Glenn.
unmute.
There
Okay,
you go.
I'm on board. So my
We
question
got
is,
you now.
okay, well, I got you too. So my question is, I'm sorry if you said it in the beginning and I missed it, but what percentage and how many dollars do you need to get at to reimburse your fund?
Well, the effort was a $300,000 fundraise, and that includes both the acquisition cost, all the due diligence costs, the appraisal of phase one, and then our hold of the property for about 2 years, and then the conveyance to the state park. And so that's the total effort we are fundraising for. We've raised probably about 125 of that, all of it private money, which is actually pretty impressive. But that's kind of where we are at this point.
Okay, thank you.
The other questions for Chris.
I guess it'd be interesting. We've gone to Homer Foundation, all those places.
The Homer Foundation put in $20,000. ConocoPhillips put in $25,000. And from that, we had some other funds that we had for use in the state park. And then there was another, I'd say, $40,000 or $50,000 that we've raised from private individuals in the area.
So you're gonna keep on fundraising. And do you have a team that you're working with for it, or like, it might be nice to know who we've already asked, so that we could help you.
Sure. At the end of the day, once it's conveyed, that's kind of the end of it for us. And You know, in our business, we're a nonprofit, you win some, you lose some. You know, didn't quite go according to plan, but I'm not gonna sell the property to a private individual because we didn't reach our fundraising goal. And I'm not gonna drag out the fundraising for an extended period of time. So we're gonna do our best to fundraise until we convey it, and maybe a little bit in the spring.
And then the conservation fund is,
And then we swallow those costs and move on.
wow.
That's just-
So graced.
That's just the business that I'm in. It's, you know, it is what it is.
Thanks for all your work.
Sure.
We really thank you for all your effort. That's pretty impressive. Thanks.
Sure.
It is impressive, you know, for a while there, we thought we had lost that property because another entity had purchased it. And either due to the fact that they lost their income or the cost of removing pilings, because they were talking about pulling those pilings out of there. They ceased their development plans and gave it back to loose centers. Loose centers?
Well, they were under contract to purchase it and the contract fell through. And so the Lazatters, the sale never actually went through. And a lot of times patience is our best asset. And we had made an offer prior to that. We couldn't compete, which is often the case with the private individual because we're unable to pay a fair market value. Fortunately, for better or for worse, that contract fell through and we happened to be right there and willing and able to move forward with the landowner. So these things come and go. When we first got involved with this project 10 years ago, Brad Mickeljohn was negotiating and the purchase price was a lot higher than it was recently. And so at that time too, there was a lot more grants available. And once we kind of make a commitment to chase a property, we really don't back down. So here we are today, 10 years later, and we're going to get it done. So appreciate all those who stepped up.
For Mike's
Bay.
could we be actively involved in the legislative process to make sure that that doesn't, fall through the cracks or that it doesn't get used as a lodge or something like, that, or a gas station was what Soldovia Village Tribe talked to me about for that place.
Well,
in the future.
that will be, once we make the donation, it will become part of the state park.
Great.
And so
Rather than DNR.
rather than DNR. So the Nuka Island Management Plan directs any private lands acquired would be automatically added to the state park. And so it would be treated no differently than other state park lands. It will have sustainable salmon language on the deed, which further encumbers the property. And this is, because it's a federal grant, oftentimes you need to put the grant language on the deed that says this property was paid for in part with NOAA funds that were passed through Fish and Game. The intent is to preserve the habitat values for the Pacific salmon. So that's another level of protection on the property. So I don't think we have to worry about it getting developed. If that was an issue, we'd have to worry about all the other state park lands getting developed. There is one more property on Nuka Island, which is the Herring Pete's property. And there's a fascinating history behind Herring Pete and Herring Pete's Cove. There's a structure out there. It's an old fox farm. We took a swing at that property and essentially the University of Alaska was unwilling to sell it at the time. It's a little bit more complicated now, but we're happy to be involved if ever that one resurfaces again. But that is now the last remaining private land. Fascinating area. Really wild country out there.
Very well.
Beautiful.
How many acres is that?
It's about the same. I think it's 23 acres.
And so, sorry for being redundant probably, but so this group wouldn't have any oomph to help them in the legislature to just say, could you designate this?
For the saddle trail, I think you'll want to keep that on your radar. Make sure that happens. And so, I kind of learned my lesson. We donated property out on the north side of the bay. What do you call it? The east side unit?
Cottonwood Eastland.
We donated a property out there to the state that was never added to the park. And we kind of learned our lesson on that one, and we want to make sure we put strong language in the deed for the Saddle Trail property that really outlines the donative intent. That it is to be part of the park, managed by the park, or, legislated. The intent is to be legislatively added at some point.
Great. Because we have had a lot of issues like with our IMLA, is that it? Where, and for the park, it's been 40 years that it's supposed to have been happening, but
Yeah, maybe a kind of a batch idea where there's probably a handful of lands that should be.
There's like 3 or 4 in that Cottonwood Eastland that are still DNR properties. That, in fact, HB 52 was going to put those into the park, along with taking out the Tutkavay Lagoon hatchery.
And that is the issue that alerted us to say, hey, wait, I thought we already gave this to the state park. And then we kind of looked back in our notes and realized
the deed wasn't strong enough.
The deed wasn't strong enough. And I mean, regardless, it hadn't been legislated yet. So, and we kind of just assumed it was. And so, anyway, we're being a little more careful now.
So at some point in time down the road, a little ways, it might be something that this group could push forward with our legislators. Hopefully to think about legislatively with those state parks.
Because they are technically, well, actually, they're not. I think they're technically within the boundaries of the state park, but they're kind of cut out. So while they're completely surrounded by the state park, they are not to be added to the state park.
They were in Oakland.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, good work.
Well, we don't have a quorum.
We don't have a
We
quorum,
do not have a quorum. We cannot conduct business.
not even, no, what do we need? Call them up.
Kirsten Dixon, Nancy Hillstrand, Stephen Lee, Louis Dupuy. And at this point, I'm not willing to do that. I've sent them numerous emails. Thank you.
So sorry, that's for everybody's time. Yeah. Thank you for being here on the screen, guys.
Did Bill, did you want to just, I mean, if you want, you do have,
I hate to take up that much time. Almost everybody here heard the presentation.
well, they got Hunt there. I don't know if you want him to hear it or not.
We can certainly do that. Go through that real quick. You want to set up the slides and screen share? I'll be happy to do that again. So I'm Camille Johnson. I have been trying to spearhead trails out of Cottonwood Eastland along with Aaron and a few other folks. And I did a presentation, which actually turned into about an hour presentation for the Trails Committee before this meeting, just with all the interest and questions and everything that it generated. And I certainly don't want to take up that much time for you folks, but I will run through the presentation. And if you have any pertinent questions, you can feel free to ask.
Your computer is not working right, Jason.
Your computer's not working right.
There it is.
Oh, yeah, my computer's not working right.
Forward and backwards.
Yep, sure.
So let's just go ahead.
Did you introduce yourself?
So about a year ago, we solicited public input on a proposal for this yellow highlighted trail that goes through here. We got a lot of feedback from the public. There's a lot of demand for a trail out in Cottonwood, Eastland. This is a route that Yarrow Hennett and I laid out back at that time so that we would have some kind of a route. I want to point out one thing. You look at this yellow highlight here, and then it goes on down here. This is what is called the fall line part of the trail, which is definitely a non-sustainable part of the trail. Green Road goes off down here. So let's go on down to the next one. So just to orient you, the current social trail is this blue trail. That is the current social trail that goes all over. The fall line trail would be right there. I want to give you a little bit of history of this borough property versus the DNR property up here. So the property, this section right up here is borough property. Let's go on to the next. So that property, and this is in this square right here, the black outline, all of this property, with the exception of this little section down here, which is the DNR ILMA, was transferred from the DNR to the borough in 2015 under the Municipal Entitlement Land Act. And it just basically, it goes from the state to the borough. The borough owns it, they manage it. But when they issue their final approval for a parcel, those lands are conveyed even if the title isn't yet formally transferred. And it's the status is what is called patent pending. And this is important because this land shows up on most of your apps, Kenai Peninsula Borough Parcel Viewer, as DNR land. And it's very confusing to everybody. Everybody asks, what about this DNR land? But in fact, this is borough land right here. That is the ILMA land right there. So it's a total of 317 acres on both sides of the road. On this little section right here is about 60 acres. The ILMA parcel is about 36 acres. So there have been conversations with the McKitchie, Ricky Geese, and land manager Marcus Mueller, yes, about swapping both these sections of land for a section of state park land along Scout Lake Road. Everybody agrees that they accept something like that, and but there's been actually no action on this. This conversations took place earlier in the year. The advantage of that would be this land would go immediately into state parks land. It would just be state parks land. A huge advantage of this is this little area right up there. That is milepost 17.4, which is our current temporary parking area for this area. The plan for building a parking lot is kind of down in this area. Parks has said it will cost over $2 million to build a parking lot there. Let's go on to the next one. So there have been Interior Trails is a professional trail building company. They both Gabe and Christine have a lifetime of work on trails. And then they started their own business here in Alaska in 2008. They've done a lot of work with state parks. State Parks has a lot of experience with Interior Trails and trust their work so that they don't have to constantly be looking over Interior Trails' shoulder, which is why we've been working with Interior Trails. We don't have the resources. Parks does not have the resources to be going out there looking after how a trail is being built. So since the spring of last year, we've had multiple meetings with them. Yarrow and I did quite a bit of trail layout last summer, and I need to go back one. Sorry. And then Gabe and Christine came down in the fall to quote inspect the trail layout that we did, and they made numerous suggestions regarding the sustainability of our layout. But they kind of agreed on the general routing with the exception of the part that goes down the fall line. We did do a trail layout around that fall line trail that was a sustainable layout. But once again, it's around the fall line trail. And the goal here, everybody agrees, we're all on the same page. We are not taking people to the fall line trail. So this early in the summer, Interior Trails provided us with some draft GPS tracks for the upper, middle, and lower section of the park. When I talk about the upper, I'm talking about right up there on that borough property. Middle is kind of, yeah, here we go. Thank you, Jason. So this is the upper area. This whole area here is what I'm calling the middle section of the park. And then down here on Green's Bench is the lower area of the park. And so they gave us these GPS tracks. A lot of work, a lot of walking was done on these trails to check them out. And this is kind of what we came up with. So their proposed trail, I left the blue line in there so you'd have a perspective of where it is here. And I've got distances over here so that'll give you an idea of all the different distances. So they had a trail up here, which is, they're calling the upper loop, which I didn't include on there because it's a short circular trail. It's mostly wet area. I don't see it as a real viable place for a trail, but the immediate need is for a trail down in this area down here. So you would come down here, on down on the orange trail, and then follow the yellow trail. One thing that we talked about is you'll notice the social trail goes along this way, the blue line. So this yellow line would probably mimic the blue line right to that point right there, and then head back here because we do not want to take people over here to the fall line trail. The reason we want to go this way through here is it really is a nice walk through the woods, through the meadows, and it meanders around. It's just a very, very pleasant walk. Lots of variety in the scenery and the walk, whereas this right here just kind of goes straight along and it's frankly kind of boring. So that's what the trail, that's kind of the plan that we've come up with, is to develop a trail that goes from here all the way down here and then follows the yellow loop. Now you might be wondering what this little pigtail is down here. That actually is where the trail would go down to Green's Bench down below. And we're not even looking at that right at this point in time. So we can go on to the next one. So Eric Clark and I had a really productive meeting with Interior Trails at the beginning of October, and we reviewed all the summer ground truthing. We came to an agreement kind of about where the trail would go that we want to put in. And we had just some frank discussions about a couple of really potentially big issues or not. Depends on how you look at it. We don't have a parking lot. I mean, we've got that borough parking pullout that we have, which works just fine. And the area where Parks wants to, we've all agreed, we've had meetings discussing the optimal place for a parking lot off of East End Road. Parks is saying would cost greater than $2 million. And as I continually say, I've got a lot of years left in me and I'm not going to see that parking lot go in during my lifetime. So should a parking lot ever come about, wherever it gets put, it would not be a big deal to run a spur from whatever trail we put in over to that parking lot. It's not an insurmountable issue. And as I've kind of been talking about is the advantage of not having that DNR property transferred to Parks right now as an ILMA is that right now we can brush it. Parks has made it very clear the volunteers are not allowed to brush inside the park. By having that trail and being able to brush it, we can get people from East End Road down to the parks and into the park and away from Elmer's Way. If we're not allowed to brush that trail, I suspect people will start going right back to the Raton Elmer's Way neighborhood, which is why we started all this from the very beginning, was to get everybody moved out of that neighborhood. So we came up with some concrete things that we're going to be doing. Interior Trails is going to provide a report with refined map lines and cost estimates for the 3 phases, that very upper part, kind of the yellow part and the yellow trail part, and then all the way down to Green's Road. And we've all agreed on that circular route on the upper bench and absolutely making sure that we don't have any kind of a trail that leads over to the fall line trail. Interior Trails is going to provide us with a template for maintenance so that we can begin developing a volunteer MOA for the friends, and hopefully in partnership with the bike club, who has now expressed a tremendous amount of interest in this area to be responsible for the maintenance. And I want to emphasize that MOA would have to be in place before a shovel is taken to the ground. Parks will not do anything without an MOA in place. These days, you cannot build a foot of trail without having a management plan for it anywhere on anybody's property. I think that it would not be at all a problem securing permission from DNR for a machine-built trail on their section of the land. It is classified as recreation land. It would not be a big deal to get a permit to be able to build a machine-built trail. Hand-built trails do not require permission. And then probably one of our biggest barriers is going to be, what about the parking? We'd have to secure permission from the borough for expanded parking at the current location. Not sure how that's going to work out. For those of you that are familiar with that location, you could just take a grader in there, cut down a few trees, throw down some Typar, a couple truckloads of gravel, and you could create a pretty darn nice parking area without any problems at all. So, and we have already reached out to the bike group. They went out, a couple of them went out on Monday. They were here for the meeting prior to this meeting. They've already generated some maps of where they think a good locations for trails would go, but they clearly are very, very excited about this project. So it's nice to have somebody else on board with helping to do this. And then the plan would be to hopefully apply for an RTP grant in August of 2024. It used to be RTP grants didn't go in until September and October, you know, kind of after the summer season when you had time. By moving it up a couple of months, you got to have all your ducks in a row by the beginning of August. I mean, you basically you're working on your grant in July and you need to be ready to get it going in August. So hopefully the friends would be able to take that on and apply for the RTP grant for the build to start in 2025. It's exciting that we've finally got a kind of a concrete plan. Whether any of it's going to work or not, I don't have any idea. There are lots of places where things could go wrong, but you know, if you don't try, you never know. And everybody, I mean, Eric was excited about it. Both Christine and Gabe were excited about it. Nobody saw any of these potential issues as being that big of a deal. So I see finally that we're probably, hopefully going to be moving forward on doing something.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just while you're up there, I'd like to ask Hans if he could please expedite the Scout Lake train.
Oh, the trade up. Yeah.
Is that a possibility?
You want me to get out of
Yeah,
this? And
yeah,
do the-
thank you.
You know, I can speak, I've given a few updates on that proposal, just leave it at that. And, you know, including speaking with the mayor a week and a half ago regarding it. And like any proposal, it's got some complexities, and I'm not trying to forecast what can happen. But what I've done so far is I've been in contact with DNR Realty Services, who the state of Alaska has a program for land trades or swaps, if you will. And obviously I've talked to the borough land management in the mayor's office. And so, you know, I think knowing all, you know, getting the partners together is the next step, and seeing how serious the borough may be and in the state lands at Scout Lake. And, you know, with that same thought, it might be worth the thought to this group of, you know, it sounds like there may be some hurdles with, or I guess in my discussions with the borough, you know, I don't know that there's any, I believe there's recreational support for use of that property. And just from your presentation, Camille, it sounds like there are some hurdles potentially with that becoming state parks land. You know, multi-million-dollar parking lot, et cetera. And maybe there would be a place there where a portion of it could remain borough lands for access that could allow a lower standard of access and still allow access to the state park, you know, some compromise in between, if that makes sense. So I'll continue to run down the land trade avenue and attempt to forecast what the possibilities of that happening are, and then I'll respond back to that group. But you know, I guess what I'm putting out there is it may not be, obviously it may not be as cut and clean as we would hope.
We could sure use a shot in the arm, you know, with some movement on this thing, because people have worked so hard and so long, as you know.
So Hans, this is Camille. do I hear you saying that possibly the borough would be willing to work on approving a parking lot there?
I guess in my discussions, Camille, with the borough, one of the discussions I had was, you know, would you support, recreational use of the property now, which they do, right? It's as far as their use of the property. So I believe, from those conversations I'd had with them, they would support, entering into an agreement with groups to maintain recreational facilities on their property there, that could tie into state parks land. So I think that's an option and perhaps one worth exploring.
Thank you very much.
And I guess what I'm getting at, Camille, is to your point, I know our infrastructure and design branch of parks, the standards are what they are and the costs are what they are. And those costs only increase, as we know. And so it's fine. That just is what it is. If it's a 2 million parking lot today, 10 years from now, it'll be 3 million, which is fine. But that's just the reality.
So, and so possibly working with Marcus as far as exploring that with him, and that would be the far less expensive way to go.
I guess in my mind, which we can discuss more, but we can kind of run down a few different trails here and see which one makes sense when it gets to be decision time. If that does that make sense, Camille, kind of there, we can, talk to Mark, and maybe out of those three, we'll find one that meets the objective here, right? Which I believe is to provide, perpetual or recreational access in perpetuity. So I guess I'll leave it at that. I'm not opposed to any. I'm opposed to no option that leads to that objective.
And Mark, great. I'll pursue that. Thanks a lot, Hans.
Yeah, and I'll be maybe we can connect after this later this week, or Camille, how does that sound, and formulate a plan? Okay.
Great. Thanks a lot, Marcus. That's Hans.
That's okay.
Very helpful. Thank you.
This is
Yeah.
Robert Hobbs. So one other aspect thought was that as long as it stays DNR land, DNR might be a little more forgiving when it comes to putting in a parking area.
On the ILMA part of it.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, that might be
I
another.
mean, it's something that could be done in stages. I mean, we know that Parks doesn't have $3 million to put into a parking area right now, so.
Yeah.
But that's not the ideal place up there where that borough parking spot is. Right, currently, so.
Yeah,
If we're gonna put money, if we're gonna put money into something, it would probably be advantageous in certain ways to put it where Parks would like to see it.
Agreed.
Okay, well, thanks on that.
Nice job. Yeah.
And let us
Beautiful.
know if we need to, if we can help out with that rural land swap or whatever. I know that to begin with, we talked to, Mayor Machicki and Jack, and then I don't know how much Ricky has been in on it, but we need to help out there anyway. Just let us know.
Okay, thanks. No, everyone's aware of the proposal. I guess we're at just to summarize here, Robert, potentially try to summarize here. We're at a point now where I need to better understand and to be able to articulate the challenges with the proposal. And when I can understand the challenges, then we can start to develop, alternatives to those challenges, or ways to mitigate those challenges. So I'll work on bringing those challenges to this group, discovering them and bring them to the group.
Very well said. Thank you.
Is that enough?
Question about the spike deal. So what is this RTP bid
for how much money is, what's this whole thing gonna cost?
We won't know how much money it's gonna be until Interior Trails gives us an estimate of the cost.
You
And the
don't,
trail would be done in phases, which is why we need an estimate of cost before we can do anything.
thanks. Dave, did you want to say anything about? I know you've been sitting there going, you know, it's kind of a.
Just a quick informal report from the water trail kind of stuff. Did hand in the annual reports for the water trail adopted sites, Cottonwood Creek, Kachemak Island, Kayak Beach. I hand those in to Jason and Carter and so on, and Carter said he was waiting for a rainy day to continue to work on those. But anyway, and we had good numbers of people visit all those sites this year for the first time. I got the trail registers from the other end of the Grace Ridge Trail. So between the two ends, rather than just the Kayak Beach end, it was 500 to 800 people that made use of both of those trailheads there.
And that signed in, there's probably a whole bunch more.
Oh, yeah, no, that's just people that actually signed the registers and on. And I'm working on some new trail registers because the papers I got from those were totally wet, mildewed, couldn't read the printing and so on. So I spent some detective time figuring out what people said, but that was fun. And the water trail and friends this past week bundled about 35 bundles of wood that will go over to Halibut Cove Lagoon when boat transportation is available before the ramp gets lifted, and that kind of stuff. And so Bill, I think, has been talking with Carter or Jason or somebody, but I'm not sure. But anyway, that's in the works. Coming up on November 9th, which is a Sunday in the afternoon, 5 o'clock or so, the friends and the water trail will be having a hot dog roast at Grace Ridge as a family-friendly event, and we'll have drinks and stuff for the kids. But that event is to be followed by a dessert auction that will be the fundraiser for the water trail and their friends and so on. So Sunday afternoon, the 19th, we'll be doing that. And there will be real hot dog stick to cook hot dogs on rather than forks and that kind of stuff. So anyway, we're looking at that. And just as a total different aside, today in the Denver forest up here, there was fresh bear tracks on the snow this morning. So they haven't gone to bed yet. No, that's it. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Dave. But on the 25th, if the weather's right, we might go have a water trail paddle.
Maybe.
It's on the calendar. So if there's any intrepid paddlers out there.
Okay with that?
The 25th.
You can paddle. That's what I was thinking too.
We usually go out there and if the weather's completely lousy, we just say, okay, leave the boats in the truck, we're going up, have a pancake breakfast. We have done that, so. Yes. It was ice and snow and it was horrible, Dave.
I actually spent the night on the ferry last night coming back from Philadelphia. It was too rough.
I saw them anchored out there.
So they put us all in, they gave everybody rooms and dinner and breakfast. Wow. We had a little, just because of that bad weather, we had a little adventure.
Just outside of Homer.
Yeah, they were anchored up there.
Ready to go to the dock.
We came to the dock and it was so
Yeah.
fierce. They just decided it was too dangerous.
Well, that's good.
That was pretty nice.
What was that?
How many passengers?
Not, coming from Philadelphia.
Well, Camille, did you want to give a friend's
Oh,
report?
sure, I'll give a quick friends report. So we had a very well attended annual meeting on October 27th. Dana Gregoire, Allison O'Hare were reappointed for a 3-year term. We welcome a couple of new board members, Rachel Neville, Jim Herbert, and Will Runeau joined the board. And then Robert Archibald, Mako, Dave, and myself are continuing board members. Mako did a kind of a fun slide presentation on his early days as a water taxi operator. And Cindy Sisson was awarded the coveted Golden Pulaski Award as Volunteer of the Year. And as Dave just mentioned, we're doing a wheat roast and pie auction at Grace Ridge. That's it.
George Matz won the big award.
The cabin across the bay for the, yes. Yeah,
And he won his wife's truffles.
truffles, yeah.
Gosh. She makes the best truffles. Well, all right. I think we've had enough updates on Cottonwood Eastland. Well, no, the ILMA. Hans, anything on that ILMA?
I just Jason and I talked about it this past week here, and I'd reached out to the previous contact in DNR lands. So no word back yet there, Robert, but I'll keep poking it and get an update for the group. And I'll be in Anchorage in a week or two, and can make some office visits for updates as well. So I will get an update on a timeline.
Great, thank you. Did you have anything you want to say? Ops report?
Very brief, ops report. I've been out of the state for trainings for a good 2 weeks. Carter's been on vacation for a couple of weeks. We did do some patrolling on the Tanner fishery, not a lot of pots out in Tuck Bay, but just checking properly marked ones and such like that. And we got one random complaint about coal burning at, Diamond Creek Beach. That's all I got.
Any questions?
What happened to your leg?
I was playing sports, just doing a light jog, nothing weird, just popped. Yeah.
Hans, did you have anything you wanted to enlighten us on?
I don't think so, Robert. I'll just one more thing, I guess, kind of ongoing business there besides the ILMA is the I was out of the office last week, but I had a message from Aaron Hunting, DOT planner there with Diamond Creek State Rec underpass. So there was a bit of an agency meeting that occurred last week. I need to catch up with Aaron for a debrief on it, and I left him a message stating as such, and I'll report back to the group when I chat with him.
Great, thank you on that. I know there is still a concerted effort by numerous groups around here to work on that underpass, but we'll see what the dollars will do.
And yeah, and all indications certainly at this point is it's still a scoping process. So I think that's a good sign.
Good, thank you for that. Glenn, your hand's still up. You have something you want to say? You're muted. You are muted still.
There we go. So yeah,
There.
my
Sorry,
question.
you've had your hand up quite a while.
Yeah, so sorry, I thought I had clicked it off. I'll eventually learn before the meeting's over. So my question of Jason or Hans, at the last meeting, I raised the recommendation that to the importance of educating personal watercraft users. And right now, there's really nothing that I know of out there by the boat launch when they go in, and some kind of sign to that effect could vastly give Jason more time than giving out tickets or enforcing and achieve our goals. And so, Jason, sounds like you're going away for 3 months. Is there somebody else we need to? And this was echoed as a good idea. Is there someone else we need to bring that to, or can you take care of that?
No, I can take care of it.
Okay, and all right, just let us know if you need help. I know everybody's busy and lots of things to do, but if need be, we can do a resolution or something to help get that done. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Friends might even, help out with that. I know she's on. Hi, Kristen. Anyhow,
Me? Wait.
we're just saying hi.
Oh, hi. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here.
We still don't have a quorum, so we're close.
Oh,
Any news on that little road that was going out in the park over there?
No updates on that.
Okay.
Lodge owner doesn't live in Alaska, so they're back in California and no activities happening up there, so.
But you have the big hammer. All right, well, I did have that rescue training for a little conversation again, but Curtis is working tonight, so. And I do have the Kachemak Bay Advisory Planning Commission, just to let people know that I was hoping Willie Dunn would show up here tonight, but I think there is a concerted effort to get that group going again. I see that there's 3 vacant seats on that, but while they were meeting monthly, they did interact with the borough really well on land issues. So that might be another avenue to do a little poking with the borough, because those folks would all advocate for recreation land too. And they have in the past when it comes to decisions as far as various subdivisions and land that the borough wanted to subdivide. And they had some strong voices against doing some of those. So anyhow, if you know anybody that wants to be a board member on that, I would say get a hold of Willie Dunn. Dave.
I've got a PS. One other little report, just briefly. The Kids Across the Bay project was very successful this summer. We set a goal for 50 kids across the bay in the park, or 50 participants. Could be one parent and 3 kids, or 4 parents and 3 kids, or whatever. But anyway, we ended up with 72 participants overall, and I'm just now working on closing out that grant with the Homer Foundation. We got $2,000 from them, 2,000 from Rick Rosenblum, and 1,000 from Rotary. And from all reports of the people that took part, it was much appreciated and very successful. So we're looking at doing it again next year with a few refinements.
This is Jason, you get an estimate of number of kids that never been across the bay or family groups?
We didn't get those numbers. I wish we had, but most of the people, from Marco's point of view, most people hadn't been across the bay, parents or kids, and some of them maybe once or twice, but not as the whole family group. But yeah, so that's one of the things on the list for next season is more details on numbers and that kind of stuff.
Good. Well, at this point, I'd probably ask if there's anybody from the public that has any comments tonight. And I don't hear anybody. Anybody, any board members have a comment? Kevin?
No, totally in support of that under the underpass for the over by Diamond Creek, and I know there's several other outfits working on right club, trail lines.
Yep.
But it's kind of made the ballgame for big projects and something that big. They're working on.
They are working on it hard. Yeah. Kirsten, you got anything to say?
No, I just wanted to say I'm thankful to be back and here, and I'm excited to start transcribing again.
We have to hit record, so we got that going, but.
We got the button this time.
Yay, okay.
Yay.
All right, let's go.
So meeting,
Yeah, and
so-
I've really been enjoying exploring all the different trails around Homer and trying to get to know them, and I'm really excited about that.
Great. Well, this is not an official meeting because we didn't have quorum. And I will reiterate with everybody, if you are not going to be here at 5:30, let me know. If you're going to be late, let me know.
James would be a good recruit. Our board member.
So with that, unless somebody has something else, we will hopefully have an official meeting next month on September 13th, December 13th. And Trails meeting, 4 o'clock, regular meeting, 5:30. And with that,
Thank you, Hon. Thank you, everybody.
Hans, thanks
Thanks,
for showing
everyone.
up.
Thank you, Robert. Apologies for not being there in person.
Yeah,
Chris.
Thanks.
that's all right. We can see your smiling face.
All right.